Help, I'm still at the Tortured Poets department. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. My name is Zach. I'm the Swiftologist. I make thoughtful weekly videos. And you know what? I wanted to have another Kiki with you today because it's been 1 year since the Tortured Poets department came out. And you know, a lot has changed in the world, in life, in circumstance. But you know what hasn't changed? The fact that I left my goddamn typewriter at Taylor Swift's apartment, straight from the Tortured Poets department. I'm still there. I have been in the department. I've been clocking overtime. I have been rummaging through crevices and cracks, trying to find evidence, as Taylor might say. And you know what? This album has not gotten old to me. It is growing. It is evergreen. Every day I listen to it and I hear something new. I discover something about it that I hadn't thought of or I hadn't experienced before. And so I thought it would be a great time, an appropriate time to come back on here and re-rank the Tortured Poets department 1 year later. Now, I'm using the exact same categories as the last time. So we have Straight Into the Canon, we have A Most Beautiful Diva, we have Gorgeous Girl, we have Well Okay, and we have Delete. And you know what? So much of it has actually grown on me that I don't know that I'm really gonna have much to delete. And you can probably guess, if you follow my channel at all, what it is that I am going to delete. But I'm in my Tortured Poets department outfit. I am ready. Speaking of this outfit, if you would like to see it in person, then you need to come to one of the Evolution of a Snake live shows. We are going on tour in a very short period of time. We're coming to New York, Boston, DC, Nashville, Atlanta, Madison, Chicago, San Francisco, Seattle, LA. LA and DC are sold out. We have low ticket warnings for NYC and Boston, and we just can't wait to get on the road and see you guys. So make sure to go and get your tickets at evolutionofasnake.com. Something that has changed about the Tortured Poets department is that I can see it now because I'm wearing my glasses, okay? There were so many videos last year where I read things wrong because I was blind. And since we've discovered that I do in fact need to be wearing progressive lenses nearly all the time, I'm here looking at my screen in 4K resolution, ready to speak the goddamn truth. At the end of the video, I'm going to revisit where I had ranked everything in my previous ranking, and we will see how it stacks up and compares. I'm going to try and be a little bit more strict with myself about Straight Into the Canon, because I really want to think, like, you know, Tortured Poets has gotten so much flack. You will have seen the podcast episode this week by now. And I think a lot of it is unfair and overly critical, but I also do want to be very stern with myself about what I think is genuinely like narrative shifting or groundbreaking about this record, because I do think there is a lot of it, but I'm going to try not to be too gushing just because I love the album and I, you know, listen to it all the time. It's a Taylor Swift record. At the end of the day, I'm going to stan it no matter what. So sorry. So we'll start with Fortnite featuring Post Malone. Well, okay. See, there's a temptation to put it in Gorgeous Girl because I actually do spin Fortnite quite a lot. I play it. And as of late, I've been, you know, reading all the comments that say, you just don't get it. It's about this, it's about that. And I have two kind of responses to that. One, if it's that vague and it can be interpreted in so many different ways that everyone thinks they have the direct and clear meaning, but no one can come to a consensus, that kind of means that there's something lacking in the songwriting. It's not clear enough. It is too vague. But there is the sense that I have that she may be playing 4D chess with me, and that Fortnite is supposed to be just a vibe check of the album. It's not supposed to be as diaristic, confessional as the rest of it, but it's just, it throws me off because it was the way we were introduced to the record. It was pretty much the only like pushed single. And I think as an ambassador of Tortured Poets department, it does a terrible job of actually showing the depth and the range of emotion and writing and production that exists on this album. So I'm going to keep Fortnite in Well Okay because it's not bad to listen to. I turn it on every now and again. But, you know, the Post Malone inclusion feels completely useless and pointless as well. Like, we didn't need that. Nobody asked. And so, yeah, I'm going to be hard on Fortnite. Fortnite's going to go in Well Okay. The Tortured Poets department. Now, I really dither between Gorgeous Girl and Well Okay. And let me tell you why. When I listen to the Tortured Poets department, I am like, okay, this sounds like it was supposed to kind of be a Maddie Healy song. It kind of sounds like the most similar to a 1975 song on this record than any of the other things that she has done here. And I love it when she uses a clapback as an opportunity to mimic someone else's style. Dear John is very kind of John Mayer-ish in tone and vibe of what he was doing at the time. So the Tortured Poets department feels intentional in that way. And I also feel that this is the real mission statement or the true prelude to the record. And it's interesting that they come one after the other. So Fortnite is so vague and abstract that you truly, upon first listen, have no idea what she's talking about. Then with the Tortured Poets department, it starts to become clear, tattooed golden retriever. The writing really collapses and falls apart in that bridge. You told Lucy you'd kill yourself if I ever. Like when she goes Tay British, I start to have a problem with that. And she also leans into that Lucy Dacus songwriting that Madeline really despises, where you just start rattling things off and describing things that you see and hear around you. And that to me is kind of a bit of a cop out for a writer that's as competent and as truthful as Taylor Swift. So this feels poorly written, but that hook is really beautiful. Who else decodes you? Who's going to know you like me? There is such a cadence and a ring to it, and it kind of sparkles in the production. I'm like talking myself into it being a gorgeous girl, but the writing really does let it down, I have to say. And in almost every review of the Torture Poets department, the song that people point to as like an example of Taylor Swift's overproductive writing and decay, they point to this song. So I'm going to just put it down and well okay. I also think that, and this might be a hot take, that as a concept, it doesn't really execute the vision of the album in a way that makes sense that all of these other songs were created in a Tortured Poets department. I think it sounds like something she just came up with that she thought sounded really good, like something she wrote down in her notes app once when Maddie was leaving her house and she was having all these racing thoughts. I just don't know that it actually accomplishes what it sets out to do, which is describe the album. The album is a collection of disparate moments at times, it feels, and the Torture Poets department is supposed to clarify that, and I don't know that it does. Now, we're not really starting that strong, are we? My boy only breaks his favorite toys. I'm in between Well Okay and Gorgeous Girl. Listen, this has never really been a huge song for me. I think in my reaction, I was diva up because I was like, okay, we have a beat. Something's happening. I can kind of tell what's going on in this song. The first two songs, I had no idea. I had ascertained that we were going into a Maddie Healy territory, but I still had no clue, like the specifics of what was happening to me. So with My Boy Only Breaks His Favorite Toys, it was kind of a reprieve. But again, I do think that it's not that special. I wouldn't say this is like an essential song on the Torture Poets department. In fact, I would say it's one of the laziest songs in that it is just kind of a rote Taylor Swift, Jack Antonoff number. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not bad, but it certainly doesn't stand out to me. In fact, I actually prefer the Torture Poets department over My Boy Only Breaks His Favorite Toys. So you know what? I'm going to switch them. And, a lot of people love My Boy Only Breaks His Favorite Toys. I think it's one of the easier songs on Torture Poets to grasp just from like a lyrical perspective, like a vision. So I understand why a lot of younger people love that song, but I just think from a writer as accomplished as Taylor Swift on an album like this, My Boy Only Breaks His Favorite Toys is a little superfluous. Down bad, straight into the canon. Straight into the canon. You couldn't waterboard me into admitting the things that Taylor Swift admits about herself and about her relationship with Maddie Healy here. In a sense, the idea that Torture Poets was like rushed and not really like produced in a sense and thought through very well, I think that, a little bit more attention to detail and thought about how we are presenting ourselves publicly, putting this album out to so many millions of people who are more tuned into you than ever before. I don't know if Down Bad would have made the cut. It is shocking. It is humiliating. But also, Down Bad is kind of like the central impetus of why she kind of had the spiraling need to write everything down, because she thought that she had her happy ending sewn up. She thought that she had been taken to a place of happy ending, something she had searched for a very long time. And she was rudely disturbed from that imagination. And I think that she had kind of convinced herself that she was very grown up. And again, I'm not talking about Taylor Swift the person, I'm talking about Taylor the character in the lyrics. She had convinced herself that she was this kind of like healed and grown up person that had found her forever person, Paper Rings lover. And then all of a sudden, all it took was one blip, one glitch on the radar for her to feel all of that teenage petulance again. That really like searching, desperate, rock bottom feeling that she thought that she had said goodbye to in her youth and overcome and written through and taught other people how to get through. She's back here again. She's still at the restaurant. And I think that the contrast between the kind of like sparkling, twinkling elegance of the verses with the more realistic and, talk singing chorus is fun. And I think that it's really catchy. And it was my most played song from Torture Poets last year. This is my most played song. It's funny because back then I wouldn't have said like that was my favorite song, but it's the one that I'm reaching for all the time. I just think that it's a great number. I've also find that sequence where she starts to go, like I lost my twin. I find that so affecting and devastating. And I think it's such a simple way to state the entire feeling of what Tortured Poets was to her, it reminds me of that line in Mine, Careless Man's Careful Daughter. Like, it's a very important and significant moment that is just tossed aside because Taylor is such a competent writer that she doesn't necessarily need to build an emotional resonance around one great line because there are so many great lines to choose from. But that is kind of why I think that Down Bad is straight into the canon and instantly iconic. It signals a return back to an older version of Taylor Swift or a model of her emotional landscape that we are more familiar with and haven't seen in a really long time. So love that for her. We're getting into the good stuff. The good stuff is up next, and I'm dying to talk about it. So Long London, straight into the canon. Listen, So Long London was a completely essential piece of lore to this record. Tortured Poets would have been a lot more confusing and a lot more unclear without So Long London tying a bow on what we kind of already knew from You're Losing Me. We got to put together the clues of Midnights after it came out and with the context of what we got on the Tortured Poets department. But I think a song like So Long London really is like the key that unlocks all of those associations. And it also is the bridge to a lot of the other songs on the record. Like, it actually helps connect a bunch of the seemingly disconnected storylines. There's no Guilty as Sin, there's no Fresh Out the Slammer without So Long London first. Those songs wouldn't be so resonant if we didn't have that kind of final missing puzzle piece of So Long London. I also think that it's so beautiful. I think the production of this is really gorgeous. I love the way that they use her vocal as kind of like a church bell effect. I like the idea of a track 5 being something a bit more final. A lot of the times a track 5 feels like an active or an urgent hurt, something that is like being worked through in real time. Whereas So Long London, to me, it's like just the eventual conclusion of a feeling that had been bubbling and building for so long. You're Losing Me and So Long London are, of course, two sides of the same coin. I think You're Losing Me is definitely more of an in the moment expression, whereas So Long London is, okay, I've escaped. I'm looking at you in the rearview mirror as I get out of this jail. And that is the conclusion that we came to. We also just have so many gorgeous visuals. You say I abandoned the ship, but I was going down with it. My white knuckle dying grip. Excellence. You swore that you loved me, but where were the clues? My face was gray, but you wouldn't admit that we were sick. I could just start speaking in tongues right now. It is, I think, one of the most elegantly written songs as well. It is so clear and direct in what it's about. There really is no room for interpretation of who it could be about or what situation it is describing. Also, it had one of those key lyrics that was introduced to us before the record came out. How much sad did you think I had in me? I think that is a really telling and interesting line. Just how low did you think I'd go before I'd self-implode, before I'd have to go be free? It's interesting because I feel like Taylor has, again, I've talked about this before, but she's never been the like long-suffering person in a really long partnership like that. All of her like heartbreak songs that we've had before are from brief but intense periods of romance. This is like a real partnership, a merging of lives, a welding of souls that fell apart because it was not tended properly and two people grew apart and couldn't make it work. And what she's saying here is that she was pushed to a point where she would have to self-implode, where she would have to blow it all up in order to feel alive again. But Daddy, I love him. Possibly one of my favorite Taylor Swift songs ever written. Every single time I listen to it, I am transported to a world where Taylor is this kind of like ageless era's person. She's not a particular era, she's not a particular version of Taylor, but it just feels like the most essential essence of her. I really don't know how to describe the way this song makes me feel, but this song is straight into the canon because it does a couple of things that she has never done before. First of all, it's the recrimination of the public, but her fans at the same time. Getting into that bridge where she starts to exorciate her own fans for trying to tell her how to be and how to live her life. I think that this was the most elegant and expressive way to draw a boundary with the fans that have just been crossing lines of parasociality for so long. And again, a lot of that is self-inflicted because of the ways in which she has engaged the public to play with her relationships like it is a sport, like it is something for her consumption. I mean, she is still doing that with the way that she has been interacting with Travis Kelce. So it is also her right to turn around and say, actually, I want to renegotiate the parameters of that. And I think that But Daddy, I Love Him is a really good example of this. And it's also not her asking for permission or for sympathy. It is a very headfirst, fearless, battle cry of, even if I'm making a mistake, I don't care that you have an opinion about it because I'd rather burn my whole life down than listen to all of the and moaning. You have to simply let her rock. She is a person who is so, I think, driven by her compulsions. And the extraordinary thing about her relationship with Joe is that she really seemed to beat down a lot of her instincts and her inclinations as a person naturally that engages with the world. She seemed to keep a part of herself very contained, very tame. And of course, that was, she couldn't be jeweled, she couldn't be out there, she wasn't being supported in public by the person she loved. But Daddy, I Love Him is her being like, I finally feel free again. I feel alive again, running with my dress unbuttoned. I am so in love. I am so full of feeling that I actually don't care that I could potentially be spitting all over my own reputation because it's my name. And I am the only one who gets to disgrace it. And I think that that is such a beautiful sentiment. And it's also so brave coming from who Taylor Swift is as a person and the trajectory of her career. There was so much of her career that involved being a good girl. We know she has this good girl complex. She felt as though for so many years that she had to take other people's advice and behave in a certain way and portray herself in a specific light because there were all of these expectations and pressures placed upon her. Beautiful daughter, all my plans were laid, tendrils tucked into a woven braid. There was no space for the kind of chaos that she's describing here. So this is a very evolved version of her younger self because I think that younger self's inclination to, be dragged headfirst fearless, to scream and fight and kiss in the rain, that's a part of yourself that you learn to control over time. Everybody always tells you as you get older that safety is more important than passion. But Daddy, I Love Him is her reunion with passion in song. And that is so meaningful to me as a longtime Taylor Swift fan. And we all know that I love a clapback. And this is potentially my favorite clapback that she's ever done because it is just so elegant and well executed. It's also written in a way that is so perplexing and jargonish to the average listener that you really are not going to get what this song is about unless you're clued into the lore. And that seems and feels very intentional because she's delivering a specific message here, which is my good name is mine alone to disgrace. And if you are pretending that you care about me, I know that you don't. And I am not a character in a game that you're playing. And you can be judgmental and I will pray for you. I will pray for you. There's no need to pray for me. And I love that about her. Fresh out the slammer, straight into the canon. Jack Antonoff has been leading the charge to have a Fresh Out the Slammer retrospective reappreciation. And I'm saying, well, yes, absolutely. When people say that there's nothing new on the Torture Poets department, that everything on it is just a retread of things that she's done before, I simply must direct you to Fresh Out the Slammer. Show me a song in her catalog that sounds like this, or that is written in this way. There is something kind of folklorian about the way that this story is told, particularly that end when we're going into the house where you still wait up and that porch light gleams. This feels very connected to the cardigan, to the about you of it all. There is a lore perspective here, but I also think that it leans into the idea of Taylor Swift as outlaw. And again, she has always been good girl. Being someone that does something intentionally wrong for the gratification and the pleasure of doing so is a character trait that she has not really lent into in her discography. I think we get kind of a glimmer of this sentiment in Cowboy Like Me, which also feels very linked to this song. But this really is a drawl from a convict. And the jail was her relationship with Joe. I also think that the verses here are some of the most beautiful writing that she has ever done. Another summer taking cover, rolling thunder, he don't understand me. Splintered back in winter, silent dinners, bitter, he was with her in dreams. Again, we can make all of our connections to other songs here. My favorite part of this song, and one of my favorite parts of the whole record, is the following stanza. Gray and blue and fights and tunnels, handcuffed to the spell I was under, for just 1 hour of sunshine, years of labor, locks and ceilings, in the shade of how he was feeling. But it's going to be all right. I did my time. Do you see how she's working with an extended metaphor here, but everything is phrased so delicately and simply that you know exactly what she means, and you also know exactly what she is referencing. If you are familiar with her discography, just 1 hour of sunshine, he was sunshine, I was midnight rain. There's a little bit of that in there. Years of labor, locks and ceilings. The relationship she's talking about here was always depicted in her work, even from the very early stages when it was happy and her savior. It was always depicted as a bit of a chore, a lift, something that was not guaranteed and was hard won and needed to be fought for over and over again. In the shade of how he was feeling. We know that she talks a lot about his Cascade Ocean Wave blues. He was not a difficult person to be with, and it seems like a lot of their relationship was dictated by his moods and how he responded. And she says it's going to be all right. Whatever happens, whatever the conclusion of this, she kind of knows that it's disastrous in this song. You can kind of feel this humid sense of impending doom and disaster, a car driving towards a brick wall, but she has no choice but to execute and follow through because it's been all right. I did my time. Whatever comes next is going to be okay because there's no way that the consequences of this scenario can be as bad as the punishment that I inflicted upon myself in this relationship for the last however many years. This song and Guilty as Sin also give us a very essential part of the timeline between Joe and Maddie. We know that if there wasn't overlap, there was at least some sort of pining, some yearning while there was an active relationship still going on with someone else. As I said in my letters, communicating with you before I left the jail, now that I know better, I will never lose my baby again. I also love how she gives us a window into how other people were perceiving her relationship with Joe as well, because that isn't a perspective that we got. We never heard in the happy songs just how much everybody loved him. We didn't talk about how he was the favorite person amongst her friends or the life of the party. Here she says, my friends tried, but I wouldn't hear it. Watch me daily disappearing for just one glimpse of his smile. All those nights you kept me going, swirled you into all of my poems. Now we're at the starting line. I did my time. The starting line is a theme that we needed to have in order to connect it to Maddie Healy. It comes back around again in The Black Dog. In terms of this being the most Taylorified album of any of her records, this song definitely is a key piece of that. But also, I think this song completely stands by itself. You don't need to have the context of the situation that she's talking about to understand the feeling that she's imparting here. And it has such an interesting kind of production switch towards that end where she is arriving at her new fate, where she is smashing into the brick wall and waiting to see what's going to happen next. And she, still reinforces here something about those imaginary rings. She thought they were going to get married. That is something that, again, you couldn't waterboard out of me. Someone that I dated for like a month, 2 months, 3 months, how long was it? It was very brief. I thought I was going to marry them and I was sad when they left me for an internet starlet. I would not be admitting that on the world stage. I wouldn't. But that is the genius and the brilliance of Taylor Swift. Florida featuring Florence and the Machine. Well, okay. I really don't care for this song. I think it does share a connection with Fresh Out the Slammer production-wise. I understand why they are sequenced together. Really, I think it should be Florida and then Fresh Out the Slammer and Guilty as Sin, because Fresh Out the Slammer and Guilty as Sin, those two songs need to be connected to each other. If anything, I would have Guilty as Sin going into Fresh Out the Slammer, I suppose. This track list is kind of all over the place, but I do get the sense that she made some sort of an effort to make it more chronological than her track lists have been in the past, even though it's not directly and specifically chronological. Florida to me is a nothing song. I think it was just, I want to write a song with Florence and the Machine. And, I'm in this Floridian kind of swampy, hazy, outlaw moment. So I'm just going to pick up where I left off with Fresh Out the Slammer. And I'm saying we could have put the pen down. We could have put the pen down. I'm not interested in this. Guilty as Sin, straight into the canon. One of the best songs on Tortured Poets, and probably other than Down Bad, the one that I reach for an impulse listen the most. Fresh Out the Slammer puts me in a specific mood. But Daddy, I Love Him, I need to be focused. I don't just casually listen to that song. I need to be like activated and engaged every time I listen to it. Guilty as Sin, I can just put on whenever, because it is one of those kind of like, you're sitting at your desk and you're tapping your pencil and you're daydreaming. You're not focusing on what you're supposed to be doing. You're thinking about that one unanswered question. And we all know that Question is one of my favorite songs from Midnights, and it is inextricably linked to Guilty as Sin. Question is more of a confrontation with the object of her affection. Guilty as Sin is a reckoning with her own role and culpability in whatever the dissolution of the current relationship she's in is going to be. Because at this point, it seems to me, it feels like from this song, she knows that her relationship with Joe is over. She knows that that period of time has ended, but she does not know how to get out of it. And the only way that she can see herself getting out of it is not a mature, amicable breakup. It's throwing her life onto the rocks and like really destroying it so that there is no possible way that she can be sucked back into this dynamic that is pretty clear she had tried to get out of before or had felt like it was on tenterhooks for a really long period of time. This is another song that like productionally, I think people point out as something that is like rote and the same, but I challenge you to find something that sounds as like singer-songwriter indie rockish as this in the rest of her catalog. I think the time signature of it is really interesting. It has a very compelling pace to it. It definitely sounds like a run-on sentence. It sounds like a thought that has not been completely executed, or a thought that you're even too scared to think, so you just kind of let it run amok in your mind's eye while silently hoping and praying that that thought will just go away because it's got too much juice in it. And it starts with an incredibly lore-ified moment, drowning in the Blue Nile. He sent me downtown lights. The way that she delivers that downtown lights is so gorgeous. And I think that her vocal performance on this record is really often overlooked. And Guilty as Sin to me is an exercise in restraint and delivery. You can feel her bone deep boredom swelling up throughout the song. This big wave that kind of crashes over the rocks at the end of the song, the way that she modulates the chorus up a little bit when she goes into that very last chorus. And the chorus itself is weird. It's such a tongue twister. It really is a tongue tie. What if he's written mine on my upper thigh, only in my mind? That takes a minute to like wrap your head around what that image is going to be, but that's kind of an essential tortured poet's experience, I think, which is to bombard you with words. And at first you're like, oh my God, what is she talking about? And then when you really think about it, it's very simple and it's expressed in a very eloquent and beautiful way. Moments in this song that I love, these fatal fantasies, giving way to labored breaths. Why does it feel like a vow we will both uphold somehow? It's interesting because there's a connection to But Daddy, I Love Him in the bridge here too. What if I roll the stone away? They're gonna crucify me anyway. What if the way you hold me is actually what's holy? If long-suffering propriety is what they want from me, they don't know how you've haunted me so stunningly. I choose you and me religiously. So here again, she's making that commitment to her inner life and to her inner desire to live a passionate and exciting existence as a romantic in this world. She doesn't necessarily want safety. This cage was once just fine, but it is no longer appropriate or fit for purpose anymore. She also sees that she's in a losing battle anyway. She's made her relationships and her love the subject of her work. Her work is inherently one of the most public things in the world. Is there a profession that is more public than what Taylor Swift does? She has commodified translating her innermost private thoughts into being consumed by the public. So if I roll the stone away, if I break up with Joe tomorrow and I decide that I'm just going to be alone, they're going to crucify me anyway. They're always going to have something to say because I have made it my business to keep people interested in what I'm doing. And if people expected me to be some sort of lame duck that's just going to sit in a situation I'm unhappy with because I've made my bed in public and made it seem as though this is the answer, you don't know how I've been haunted so stunningly by the question, by the availability of another option, by the potential of a greater love. It isn't even really about Maddie. It is about the potential of something more stunning, something that is really worth losing something for. Brava, bellissima. Who's afraid of little old me? I'm going to put her in Gorgeous Girl. She doesn't go to Most Beautiful Diva to me because again, I've always thought this. I think that Who's Afraid of Little Old Me is extremely overwritten. It's overwrought. It's almost comical and silly in the way that it presents itself. I loved the title. It was the song that I was most excited to hear from the track list. And I definitely gagged when I heard it because it is a surprise. But I do not find this to be a listenable song. I am never turning this on. I am never trying to listen to it. I think that there are so many mixed metaphors and visuals and images in this song that you just get completely overwhelmed by the ridiculosity of it all. It feels like a very messy attempt at doing something slay, doing a clapback. Whereas I think something like But Daddy, I Love Him is a lot more elegant and a lot more subtle. Oftentimes, the subtle clapback is much more resonant than Who's Afraid of like, girl, we need to relax. But I understand that this is a very important song. I think there's a female rage element to it that perhaps I'm just not getting and it is important to other people. And I can understand why people are really drawn and connected to this song. But for me, I don't think that this is anything special that hasn't been accomplished elsewhere in her discography. There are plenty of songs on Reputation that accomplish exactly what Who's Afraid of Little Old Me sets out to do, but in a more elegant, eloquent, or interesting way. Look What You Made Me Do, for example. That is like a way more sparse song lyrically, but from a production perspective, the way that the instrumental and the lyrics come together to create a moment of Who's Afraid of Little Old Me, a moment of goth punk female rage, that is the moment to me. I can fix him. No, really, I can. I mean, delete. Who's listening to this? Who's streaming this? Nobody. Don't tell lies in my comment section and say this is your favorite song from the album. Every time I say that about any song, I get an influx of comments being like, I'm its #1 fan, but I have never heard from these people before. So I can fix him. I mean, it's kind of a narrative device, and it helped me when I was listening to the record for the first time understand where we were going and who we were talking about. So it's kind of a bit of a signpost. And it is interesting to think about like what songs Taylor puts on the album to specifically say something, like to give a message rather than to deliver a feeling or an account of something that happened to her. And I Can Fix Him is kind of like an explainer. It kind of explains why she's decided to blow up her life and do all of these things. It also foreshadows that she knew it wasn't perfect even when she was really trying very hard and considering blowing her life up to make it work. So I appreciate it for its narrative structure, but girls, we didn't need it. LOML, straight into the canon. I have a whole video about LOML, so I won't linger and spend too long here. But truly, this and Down Bad, two of the most humiliating songs, also just like shockingly raw and vulnerable. And the vocal performance here, if you've never cried when you've listened to LOML, I don't think you have a heart. I think you're like the Tin Man. Is he the guy in The Wizard of Oz that has no heart? You're him. You're him. You got no feelings, no emotions if you don't well up a little bit at LOML. It's grief to me. This is the most clear song about grief that I think she has ever written. And like romantic grief is something that we do talk around a lot. We discuss it in the terms of like a heartache or a heartbreak. But I think there is also a grief that comes when you really get your heart broken. You have not just companionship taken away from you, but you have an entire life, an entire plan, a dream, a vision that you had concocted. The way you thought your life was going to go is now completely different. And you had absolutely no say in whether that was going to happen or not. So for the grief element of it alone, I think it introduces a new emotion to the canon, which I'm always welcoming. I can do it with a broken heart. Straight into the canon, I mean, it has to go straight into the canon because it is about the Eras Tour. And I think that this could have been the lead single from the record very easily and probably should have been, because I think this is much better than Fortnite at giving us an overview into what we can expect. And I think people were genuinely shocked to learn that Taylor Swift was doing it with a broken heart, because I thought when the Maddie thing ended, I really didn't think it was that serious, especially because she started dating someone else so quickly afterwards. I was like, this was just a blip on the radar. She dumped him. He is, he fumbled the bag, when really it was like the opposite scenario. She was the one that was like, we will now soon be getting married and, going on with the rest of our lives. And he was like, actually, never mind. After I've hoodwinked you into wanting to be with me and like subliminally messaged you for all of these years, now suddenly I've decided that actually I'm going to do something different. The Smallest Man Who Ever Lived. I am being really strict with myself. I'm going to be really, really strict with myself here. I'm going to put that in a Most Beautiful Diva, and let me explain why. The Smallest Man Who Ever Lived is, I think, intended to be the searing takedown of Maddie Healy. I think that is better accomplished in a song like LOML. The depth of the betrayal that is portrayed on that song is a lot more intense than what we get on The Smallest Man Who Ever Lived, which feels a little bit more like a petty grievance or a settling of score. That doesn't mean that there aren't some absolute bangers of lines on The Smallest Man Who Ever Lived. Mouth agape when I heard it for the first time. Once again, you deserve prison, but you won't get time. I'll forget you, but I'll never forgive Smallest Man Who Ever Lived. Great title, great way to put someone down. But I do think that we have like songs like this in her catalog. Dear John is a much better pointed, searing takedown of a specific person and their character. I also feel that The Smallest Man Who Ever Lived suffers from the production and writing bloat of Tortured Poets. When we're thinking of the main critiques of the album, this song, even though it's good, has both of those things. I think that there is an excellent, iconic straight into the canon song inside of The Smallest Man Who Ever Lived, but it needed a bit of trimming and it needed some production work. That bridge was really, really fumbled. Not having that higher vocal take more forward in the mix, it just sounds unfinished and in a way that is rushed, not in a way that is intentional. So I don't love that about it. The Alchemy. Straight into the canon or a Most Beautiful Diva. We love The Alchemy. I am not having the Travis Kelce or Maddie Healy conversation yet again in the comments. We've done it so many times. So just, hold off. Do I think this song is entirely necessary? Co-host of my podcast, Madeline, blizzardreview.substack.com. Go check it out. Best podcast ever made, other than Evolution of a Snake. She's made the argument that The Alchemy is basically just Fresh Out the Slammer. It's the same story, but told in a different way with a different metaphor. And I think that that's true, but Fresh Out the Slammer is more successful. So I'm going to put The Alchemy into a Most Beautiful Diva because, who doesn't love the hook and the fun of that song? There is a moment of like levity and reprieve on that song that I think we are not having on the rest of the standard track list. So I am very interested in it. So for that reason, it's interesting. Clara Bow. Okay, I really am trying to be so strict. Clara Bow into the canon or a Most Beautiful Diva. Now, I think that everything that was said in Clara Bow was more or less covered in Nothing New. And I do think that Nothing New is a better song, but that You Look Like Taylor Swift in This Light, that part is one of the best parts on Tortured Poets to me. All right, I'm gonna follow my heart and put it in a Most Beautiful Diva. Okay, so that is the standard edition. We have 7 songs and straight into the canon and only 1 in delete. Wow, generous king. Let's get into the anthology. And this is where we start to bloat. This is where there becomes too much information. The Black Dog. Straight into the canon, I cannot put it. I love The Black Dog as a song. I think that it is great. I listen to it all the time. My surprise song in London. But does it say anything different on the rest of the record that is not better expressed elsewhere? In fact, I think there's a better song on the anthology that expresses what is being expressed on The Black Dog. What I do love about it, and what I think is kind of indelible, is the production. I think that the mixing up of the piano ballad with that like really heavy, I don't even know what that sound is, the do-do-do, that bang, I think is really effective. And I think it was a great way to start the anthology, but I'm gonna put it in a Most Beautiful Diva. I'm gonna get you back. I love this song. I love this song. It's one of my favorite songs from Tortured Poets. Is it straight into the canon? No. Is it a Most Beautiful Diva? Is it one of the best songs on the record? No. It's just a personal favorite of mine. And since I'm trying to be relatively objective here, I'm gonna put it in Gorgeous Girl. The Albatross. You know, I have had my moments with many songs on the anthology. The Albatross, I had a brief moment with her, and I quickly decided that that moment was soon going to be over. The interesting part about the Albatross is dealing with Taylor's own conception of her myth and her legend to men, how they perceive her when she gets into entanglements with them, how they have to deal with all of these outside forces about who she is and how she can destroy their lives. I think this is better explored in a song like Dancing with Our Hands Tied, which she matched it up with at one of my Dublin shows. So I'm going to put the Albatross in Gorgeous Girl. Okay, I'm going to put it there. Chloe or Sam or Sophia or Marcus, straight into the canon. This song, as Madeline says, the Rosetta Stone of Tortured Poets Department. The entire story of this record exists in this song. It has some of her most quietly devastating lyrical moments. It has some moments of clarity and also reflection that I think we don't get from the standard edition of Tortured Poets. I see the value of the anthology with a song like Chloe or Sam because it's almost as though she revisited the subject material after she had some time to think it over, think about how did it end, for lack of a better word. You can piece together the story that is being told here through all of the other songs on the record, but it's like through a line here and a line there. This song has it all. It talks about not only what happened to them as the decade would play us for fools and you saw my bones out with somebody new, it also has the kind of crux of the emotional damage that was done to her here. The idea that there are some doors you simply can't reopen. There are past versions of yourself that you cannot reunite with. There are people in this world who are not willing to view you as a real person or as an evolving character. They want you to be a specific thing. And when you are not that thing to them, especially when part of your life is a public performance, they are disappointed, which makes you feel almost like you're not real. That's really what I get from this song. You said some things that I can't unabsorb. You turned me into an idea of sorts. That says it all. That really says it all. I changed into goddesses, villains, and fools, changed plans and lovers and outfits and rules, all to outrun my desertion of you, and you just watched it. The character of the person she is singing about is also very, very clear here. This is a careless person who is relatively unfeeling and mostly moves through their life thinking about what they want and how they can get what they want from other people with very little regard for how that impact someone else. Taylor is not the kind of person that can just forgive and forget, as she lets us know. These things play on her mind. She's a writer, and how else is she going to express it but through song? If you want to break my cold, cold heart, say that I loved you the way that you were. It finishes kind of like almost in the middle of a sentence, like it's not even really done. And I think that it is such an integral, like key, master key to the entire album. And without it, you know, it would be a lot less profound. How did it end? Now, do I want to put this in a Most Beautiful Diva or straight into the canon? Let me look at the lyrics for a second, because How Did It End is an interesting one. It's one of those songs that I had a very negative reaction to when I first heard it. I think I was just fatigued at this point with the anthology. I was like, oh no, another slow song. It was becoming Evermore 2.0. I love that about it now. But back then I was like, okay, well, what's the point of this? And the story was not becoming immediately clear. I really should have given it an hour at least between playing one and the next. But, you know, it was a long day. I had a lot of editing, a lot of filming to do. So I just powered through. I still think there are parts of this song that are melodramatic and overwritten, but I think there is something so gorgeous about that chorus. Come one, come all. It's happening again. And it is like, oh no, my worst nightmare is coming true. I am once again going through an embarrassing public breakup and I now have to explain myself. And except here, she's not talking about public perception. She's talking about having to explain what happened to her friends. And the story, as we know, it's taken her so many songs to unfurl what happened between those two people. It is not as simple as, you know, he did this, I did that, and so the relationship is over. There was no specific, like, big betrayal. If anything, it seems as though Taylor wasn't able to articulate why she had to leave in the moment that she left. Therefore, she doesn't know what to say, and she feels a bit disoriented by this loss. And she writes from the perspective of her friends, who must perceive her to be crazy at this point, by saying, guess who we ran into at the shops, walking in circles like she was lost. Didn't you hear? They called it all off, one gasp, and then how did it end? Everybody wants to know. And Taylor doesn't know how to describe it. Sometimes when you are so heartbroken or devastated by something, you cannot even verbalize how the loss happened, not let alone what it meant to you or how you're going to be going forward, but how it even happened. It's just like 1 second your love was there and the next day it was gone and you have no idea how it happened, even though, you know, when you're close to it, you don't know, but in your mind you do. It is a really interesting little morsel here. So where am I going to put it is the question. Am I going to put it in a Most Beautiful Diva or straight into the canon? I think Chloe or Sam does cover that territory, so I'm going to put it in a Most Beautiful Diva, but that's a big jump from where it was last time. So high school, okay. I'm not as Tavis pilled as the rest of the world is. I also don't think that it's that good of a song. I think that the writing is extremely corny and cringy. Some people find it cute and charming. I find it embarrassing. I'm gonna give a polite I'ma let you rock to So High School. I hate it here, straight into the canon. If Chloe or Sam is the master key to Tortured Poets, I Hate It Here is the master key to Taylor Swift's entire inner world and the romanticism of her inner life. And I think that if you are a writer, if you are a creative, this is one of the most relatable moments of this record. When you are a creative, you spend a lot of time dreaming. You project into the future, you imagine ideal situations, you rewrite endings, or you create completely different worlds to escape the horrors of what, confronts you in reality. As a writer myself, I know that having the vocation to write, because in general, I think if you are a writer, you understand that it's a vocation, which means that you feel compelled to do it, whether it is good or bad, whether you like it or not, it is just something that has to be done by you. When you feel that compelled to be a writer, you always kind of naturally have one foot in this world and one foot in another kind of unreality world that looks like the world that you're in all of the time, but you have a lot more control over and you have the tools to reshape and refit in your image. But the problem is that you can never fully step with both feet into either world. Because writing is your vocation and it is a solitary act, it is something that you mostly do by yourself and it needs to come from you. You cannot fully bring that imagination, that secret garden in your mind. You can't realize that fully in the real world, but nor can you pretend like it isn't there, and nor can you pretend like there isn't an ideal place that you would rather be than the reality that exists in front of you. So I think Taylor describes that tension here so beautifully. She has both a deep respect for her vocation and also this unsatisfied yearning to not have this loathing for the real world. Writing as a vocation is a really interesting thing, and I can make a whole video on this, but it is an interesting disposition and worldview to have as a person because you are kind of naturally never satisfied by what is going on in the real world. Even if things are going great, there's always a different place that you are existing in that you can't even really explain to others. You can try and transmit it by getting it down into an essay or a song or a book, but whatever you manage to put down on paper is just one fleeting moment of what you were able to articulate and bring from that foot of the world to the next foot of the world. You are never able to fully capture either or. And I think that's what's so wonderfully expressed here. And Taylor Swift is like the most popular, coolest girl in the world at this point in time, right? The Eras Tour. She is someone who seemingly, has an endless social battery, who is getting everything that she wants, even at the peak of her existence when everybody loves her and everything conceivably right could be happening for her at the same time. She still wishes that she was somewhere else and she still hates it here. The moments that really stick out to me as describing this here are the bridge, of course. I'll save all my romanticism for my inner life and I'll get lost on purpose. This place, the real world, made me feel worthless. Lucid dreams like electricity. This is the impulse to write, to translate her experience into song. The current flies through me, and in my fantasies, I rise above it. And way up there, I actually love it. The thing about being half in one world and half in another is that eventually you are able to see both of them from a bird's eye view. And you have that rare moment of synthesis where you feel like you understand the real world in a deep and complex way that you couldn't if you weren't so attached to your writerly disposition. So enough spitting about I Hate It here. Greatest song ever made. And we're doing a hard pivot into the worst song ever made. Thank you, Aimee. Delete. Worst song on the album, easily, no bar. Horrible image of being pushed by a statue. Impossible, by the way. You guys know how I feel about hearing about the Kimye situation. Unless it's a new take, unless we have something different to say, I'm overhearing about it. And a lot of people think I'm the devil for saying that, but I'm looking at this from a critical perspective. I'm thinking about the critiques of Tortured Poets, which is that it is too long, it is too rambling, it is too self-indulgent. And a song like Thank You, Aimee has no business existing on the same record as I Hate It Here. It has no purpose. It adds nothing to our understanding of what Taylor Swift was going through at this period of time. We've heard it. We've heard it before. I look in people's windows. This is an interesting one. I don't really think that it expresses anything completely new. Clara Bow kind of covers what I Look in People's Windows covers. It is about feeling on the outside, feeling unlike others. I think this is really a meditation on fame. There's a little bit of I Hate It here and there as well. It's interesting, but it doesn't feel like a fully formed thought, so I'm gonna leave it in Gorgeous Girl. The Prophecy, straight into the canon. The Prophecy, wow. I have waxed poetic about The Prophecy before, but this song to me is Taylor from she's in that other world, right? She's got her foot in the other world and she is assessing her fate, her destiny. She's talking about herself as a writer here. She's like, as a writer, I'm condemned to suffer heartbreak forever because that is the role that I have taken on in the real world. That is just what I am supposed to do. I've made this bed my career, and now I have to lie in it, and I don't want to do that anymore. But it's almost like she's made a deal with the devil. It's a very interesting song. It says a lot about how she conceptualizes both her value and her purpose in the world, and how that conflicts with her desires as a person. I think a lot of the time she is led by her desires as a public figure, as an entertainer, as a musician, as a fixture of the culture, but she is also a person. And this very much to me is Taylor Swift, the person, telling us something. So I appreciate that moment. Cassandra, I'm also going to put this into delete. I'm sorry. I also don't think that this song is melodically that interesting. It covers the same ground as Thank You, Aimee. I don't like it. Peter, delete. I don't like it. It has not grown on me at all. It doesn't say anything that isn't said elsewhere on the record. I find the lyricism to be remedial. I find the melody to be trite and boring. I'm not being swayed on this one. The Bolter. Now, the Bolter is one I have come around on a little bit. I think that this brings the ever more folklore writing approach into the torture poets world, which is interesting. Do I think it's absolutely essential to the record? No, but I do think it is a very well-written song. So I'm going to put it in Gorgeous Girl. Robin, delete. We don't need that. That it serves absolutely no purpose on this record. Even if you like it as a song, I would like you to quickly explain to me what it has to do with the Torture Poets Department. I could see it being on Evermore. I could see it being on Folklore. Those albums were more porous. They had more space for the really, really rambling dreams. This is a screaming example of too much, too much. Some thoughts we just keep to ourselves. I think she just wanted to put this on the record as like a nod to Aaron and be like, I love you and I love your kid. And she's entitled to do that, but I'm entitled to skip it every single time. The Manuscript. Straight into the canon or a Most Beautiful Diva. Now, to me, the Manuscript is like a really top-level summary of everything covered in I Hate It Here, The Prophecy, and Chloe or Sam. It is very easy to understand. It is very straightforward. It reminds me of I Can Do It With a Broken Heart in that it is about eras. I really have always envisioned this song as being written after Taylor had directed the All Too Well 10 music video. She was reuniting with her older self, but also letting her go and saying goodbye. It's kind of ironic because I think that the rest of the album is Taylor reuniting with parts of herself that she really wished she had been able to say goodbye to, but wasn't. So the Manuscript is kind of like a false, this story isn't mine anymore. I don't necessarily know that she feels that way about every song on this record. But again, you can make the argument that at the end of a record, like her writing the record and putting it out, that is the Manuscript moment every single time. So maybe perhaps it is that final bow that we need for the record, but to be strict with myself, I'm going to put it in a Most Beautiful Diva. All right, and there we have it. That is my re-ranked version of the Tortured Poets Department. Shall we revisit what I had originally said? Okay, so this was my original ranking. What do we have here? We have in Straight Into the Canon, But Daddy, I Love Him. We have Guilty as Sin, The Smallest Man Who Ever Lived, I Can Do It With a Broken Heart, Fresh Out the Slammer, LOML, I'm Gonna Get You Back, The Black Dog, I Hate It Here, and Down Bad. Okay, notable exclusions from the current ranking. The Smallest Man Who Ever Lived has been executed. She has been taken down to Most Beautiful Diva. We also have I'm Gonna Get You Back and The Black Dog shoved down. So Long London has also made an appearance. The Prophecy and Chloe or Sam have also snuck up there expeditiously, which is very interesting because I had Chloe or Sam and The Prophecy in Gorgeous Girl. That's like 2 whole categories down. I had the Albatross in Most Beautiful Diva. Huh. That's really interesting. I had So Long London there. The Alchemy is kind of staying in the same place. Okay, we love to see consistency. The Black Dog also got demoted, unfortunately. How Did It End got majorly upgraded, as did the Manuscript and Clara Bow. Oh, actually, Clara Bow was always in a Most Beautiful Diva. Well, why not? The Albatross really took a nosedive. She's gone. Who's Afraid of Little Old Me actually got an upgrade. I put her into Gorgeous Girl, which I think is very generous of me. The Torture Poets Department title track also got an upgrade. I'm Gonna Get You Back fell down 2 categories. That is sad for her. And The Bolter got an upgrade too. The Bolter got an upgrade. You know what I just realized? There's an extra category. There's an extra category, which is Well No. Okay, so I forgot to put in Well No, but what would I put in Well No? What I had in Well No was Florida and So High School. And I'm kind of resonating with that. I would still, if I had the Well No category, So High School and Florida would be in the Well No category. They're barely scraping by in Well Okay. Fortnite and My Boy Only Breaks His Favorite Toys also got downgraded a category, and I have kept the exact same songs I wanted to cut, but I have added I Can Fix Him. I hope you enjoyed hearing how my relationship to these songs has evolved. Let me know what you guys think. I would love to hear if you had to pick just 4 songs that would make it straight into the canon, what would you pick? If I had to go through my current selections, I would pick probably But Daddy, I Love Him, Guilty as Sin. This is actually really hard. Fresh Out the Slammer. It's either got to be Down Bad or LOML. I don't know if I can choose. I'm gonna go with LOML. Okay, those are my 4 selections. What are yours? Let me know. Don't forget to get tickets to the Snare store. We can't wait to see you, evolutionofsnake.com.